What's up, cinephiles? Welcome back to the channel. For today's video, we'll be talking about the South Korea crime drama film Night in Paradise directed by Park Hoon-jung. But before we continue with this review, I invite you guys, if you haven't subscribed yet to the channel, hit that subscribe button. We do weekly reviews of movies and TV shows. And while you're at it, please give this video a like. Now, Phil, what is this movie all about?
Hiding out in Jeju Island following a brutal tragedy, a wronged mobster played by Uhm Tae-goo with a target on his back connects with a woman who has her own demons. This woman played by Jeon Yeo-been from a very famous K-drama, Vincenzo.
Okay, so I love the title of this movie. How ironic. I feel sorry for everyone who thinks this is a romance movie who just based on the title. Movie set on Jeju Island, how idyllic, you know? Yeah. But as we know, this is a story of a gangster who constantly has to look over his back. He brought in the island these two warring gangs, so expect a lot of blood, a lot of gore. This is as bleak as it gets. It's relentless. It's just brutal. Tae-goo Yoom, he has this blank expression in his face throughout the movie. And it's reasonable because this character has a lot of tragedies in his life. He meets this Jeon, who I think became the star of the show, especially on the latter half of the movie. I was excited when a lot of carnage happens. I find them an odd couple. The other one is trying to run away, prevent his death as long as he could. And then there's this young woman who seems to be apathetic. She doesn't care if she dies today or tomorrow. And we know why these two people have been the way they are. I just want to say, there are some scenes in this movie which I find appetizing, especially when they're eating this mulho, this spicy raw fish soup. And then there's some scenes were appalling, I would say, because there's a lot of gore. Sometimes it gets gratuitous, that it kind of gets away with the message of the story. But if you're a fan of this type of genre, you will feel very much at home. And a lot of betrayals, double crossing. This is pretty much unglamorized. The lifestyle of a crime mobster and gangster, it really gets into the inner workings and the underbelly of those organizations. Like, it's so complex. Different bosses, you know, different allegiance, and it gets really tricky, you know, once you get entangled in this kind of lifestyle.
For me, the strongest part of this movie is definitely in its characters. Tae-goo, who is the wrong mobster, and yeah, I definitely agree that the character Jeon here, the woman who he connected with, really stole the show, especially at the second half. But besides those characters, even the gang leaders, in a way, they're colorful characters. That is a welcome addition to this cast because in a way, they're portrayed in a cartoonish sense for me, especially the boss of Tae-goo here. He's just this really lame boss of the mob, always afraid for his life or afraid of other mobsters. And another thing that I really like about this film is Jeju Island. It made me want to go to Jeju Island and try out their dishes. In the scenes where there are violence, it's almost like a Quentin Tarantino movie. It can get really indulgent. Blood just really splatters all over the place in those gory scenes. But I really had some issues with this movie. There are some plot holes here. There's something that he does that brought him to Jeju Island, but him being this professional badass mobster didn't get to finish that job is just odd to me. Another thing here is I'm not really a fan of the color palette here. I get that this movie is trying to go for a bleak tone. It just felt a little bland for me in terms of the color palette. This movie has humor sprinkled all throughout the film, and some of the humor here just felt misplaced to me. I get that they're trying to provide some moments of levity at specific parts of this film because it tends to get overly serious and overly dramatic at times, but it just didn't really fit for me. This movie can be overlong because of long stretches of time where nothing happens, but I was genuinely surprised at the third act of how I was rooting for these two main characters towards the end. How in a way this movie swept the rug under me and I found myself caring for these two characters. And when that final scene happened, that was so gratifying to watch. I was so satisfied with that scene. I was cheering. I loved every moment of it. I hate to keep coming back to Quentin Tarantino, but I'm such a big Quentin Tarantino fan, and usually at the end of his overly violent movies is an overly violent scene that is just gonna have you cheering, and that's what I got from the ending of this movie. Because of that, it ended on a very positive note for me.
Actually, that ending could come with different feelings depending on the viewer, you know, because I don't want to say anything. Let's just leave it at there.
Yeah.
But you said you didn't like much of the color palette. I'm not sure if that bluish color tone is the best for the movie because we already have a bleak subject matter, and you know they want to stay true with the presentation, so they make it as job looking as possible. Not necessarily unappealing, but more grounded and really like unglamorized look as possible. And if you're used on watching K-dramas, you might find this different. There's a mix in this movie. It's both brutal, it's both sentimental. You know, there's burst of actions. You might be put off initially if you're in it for that type of action because in between there's gonna be sentimental, almost meandering moments.
Exactly.
You get a lot of POV from the different characters as well as the gang leaders, portraying how barbaric they can be. I wish they just trimmed some of the fat here to make it maybe 30 minutes shorter. You're right though, in the end, I did not expect to care much about these characters because they have so much negativity in their lives. Maybe the one thing that clicked to me is that they're both kindred souls, different paths, but they're all broken and almost on the verge of death spiritually. So it's easy for them to link and, you know, find companionship. And I'm glad that the movie did not force a romantic relationship here. It kind of dips on the water of romance, but I'm glad that it stayed there. And then going back to the moments of levity and the extreme gore, sometimes the movie has B-movie feels. You know, you can compare it to Tarantino for sure with the amount of carnage, but Tarantino's style is just so specific that you can see the dark humor right away, which blends so well and so odd. In here, this director-writer, he clearly has his own filmmaking sense. It kind of went into place that's sentimental, that if you're looking for that action, you might find this a bit overlong. There are a lot of things to look forward in those short bursts of action. There's a chase scene here that starts on the airport and ends on a highway. Jeon here, I kept coming back to her character. She's such a sharpshooter, which will definitely be handy towards the end. And I guess the biggest takeaway that I can get in this movie is no matter how badass and ruthless you think you are, there's always someone that's worse than you, you know, that's gonna take you out. This movie doesn't really hold back, and it really depends if this is your cup of tea. So I'm going to drop my rating now. I'm going to give this movie a 3 out of 5. This movie could have been better if they just shortened the runtime here.
You actually described it perfectly when you said that this gave you some B-movie feels. It gave me the same feeling because some characters here really take a long time to die. You have to put about 20 bullet holes in some characters here before they fall down. You have to stab someone like 100 times, and even after then, they're still gonna talk. There's a specific scene towards the third act where it's supposed to be an intense scene, but they tried to put a quip in there. And I was just thinking, because some of their enemies are around, are they just listening? They're just looking at them. That's why it gives some B-movie feels. This guy definitely doesn't rip Tarantino off. I just really brought up Tarantino because of the very, very gory style. Tarantino movies, there's just some humor in it, while in here, it's just very bleak and sentimental. So in conclusion, I like the characters in this movie. I want to go to Jeju Island someday because of this for some reason.
Not under those circumstances though,
not
right?
under those circumstances. Yeah, I agree. I hope not. God, please don't. It just felt uneven to me at times because of some misplaced humor, and there's just some plot holes that, of course, I cannot discuss all the plot holes that I've seen. There are some things that happen that are too convenient for me. But if you're a fan of movies like this that has gore and that's about the mafia, I think you can get a kick out of this. I definitely did, especially during the third act. I'm also going to give this a 3 out of 5 stars.
And that's it for our review of Night in Paradise, now streaming on Netflix. Let us know what you think in the comment sections down below.
And if you still haven't subscribed to our channel, please subscribe to us and click that like button. And as always guys, we'll see you on the next one. Bye bye!